Welcome, everyone. I'm Lady.
And I'm Alana.
And this is Spookery. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Cult 2 Electric Boogaloo. Alana, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm honestly doing just fine. I'm so excited that we have Cult, like you said, number 2 for season 1. What the heck?
I know, the season of the Cult. It's my last episode for the season. This is it. But not to worry, because in typical Lady fashion, I have a problem with episode length. So this is a 2-parter. I'm letting you guys know now, this is going to be a 2-parter, because there is no way that I can talk about one of my favorite subjects and not make it at least a 2-parter. And just like Bonnie and Clyde, it got dicey there, and I thought it was a 3-parter for a hot second, but no. I've condensed my notes kind of comfortably, so we are going to swing right into Cult 2 Electric Boogaloo. But just giving you guys a heads up, it is a 2-parter, so like don't be surprised at the end when I go, and that's where we're ending part 1.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so I guess the question that I should start my episode with is what cult I'm doing. So today we're going to be discussing Rajneeshpuram. Does that name ring a bell?
Can you say it one more time for Big Fudge?
Rajneeshpuram.
Nope. That does not sound familiar to me.
It might just be the name. I'll give you a little bit of context and see if that rings any bells.
Yeah.
So Rajneeshpuram was a religious commune that was set up outside a small Oregon town in 1981. So it's an 80s cult. Classic cult era 80s.
Okay. Still not ringing any bells, but keep going.
Okay. We're like most of what the cult did is from 1981 to 1985. So that's kind of the big time frame, but we're also going to be talking about who they were before they moved into Oregon. We're going to talk about them moving in. We're going to talk about how the locals treated them and how they started clashing with the locals and the acts that they committed to try and wrestle the town into their control.
Oh.
It's a bit of a wild heckin' ride. So hold on to your butts, but it's a fun, well, it's a wild cult. It's a cult that I hadn't heard of previously. This is actually a new one that came onto my radar recently. It was actually suggested by my mother. And she watched a documentary on Netflix called Wild Wild Country, which I highly recommend. I watched it for majority of my notes. This is actually my primary source for this. It's a 6-part series that documents their entire timeline and everything that they did. It has interviews with survivors on both sides. It has people from Oregon. It has people from the cult. It has interviews with like politicians, lawyers, businessmen, everyone involved. We'll talk a little bit more about it at the end, like just kind of like who kind of pulls on. But first things first, we must talk about the cult leader.
Yes, how it all started.
Yes, so what is a cult without a cult leader? So our cult leader... Oh, actually, before we even get into that, I'm also going to say there's a lot of name changes throughout my story. So there's a lot of characters who were born with a name, then they change the name, then they change the name again, then they change the name again. So I'm going to be referring to them as their names when they change them. So I'll start with like their birth name, then I'll switch like this is what they change their name to next, and then cover the history that way, just so you can kind of understand like the timeline. And then, yeah, everyone will kind of settle where they lie.
Gotcha.
Perfect. Right. So let's talk about our cult leader. So, Chandra Mohan Jain was born on the 11th of December, 1931, in a small village in Bareilly, Madhya Pradesh, in India.
Okay.
He was the oldest of 11 children and was raised with his maternal grandparents until he was 7. That was when his grandfather passed away, so then he went back to his birth parents in Gadarwara, India. He was described as a gifted and rebellious student, and was also known as a formidable debater. He was also very critical of traditional religion, and I think at the time it was Hinduism. He instead favored techniques that expanded his consciousness, such as breath control, yoga, meditation, fasting, hypnosis, and the occult.
All right.
Yeah, he was also an avid reader, But after showing interest in writings of Marx and Engels, he was quickly branded a communist and threatened with expulsion from school.
All right.
So all this happened before he turned 19, and also keep in mind that those are like the primary years from 1940 to 1950, so the Cold War BB. So any sort of mention of interest in communism, in Marx, you were pretty much branded from the get-go. So, 1951, at age 15, he began studying at Hitkarini College in Jabalpur, but he soon transferred to D.N. Jain College. He was also apparently so argumentative that he was not required to attend any college classes, and he only had to show up for exams. And I don't know if that's a thing. This is also that these are his words, so I don't know if that's true, but
that is an interesting, like you said, they're like, we just don't need you to come if you can learn the material, just come for the exams, that's the required stuff.
It's a pretty sweet deal, but it's also like this kind of shows that if he didn't want to do something, he didn't have to do it. And it's kind of like a consistency through his life, is that he was just so argumentative and he was so, like, stubborn in a weird way that people just, like, didn't, they were like, oh, sure, you do what you want. And I think that's a big reflective of kind of what happens later in typical cult leader fashion. But it's just something I noticed kind of throughout his childhood is a lot of, I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it. People made accommodations so I didn't have to do it.
Well, all right.
Yeah. He used this new abundance of free time to work as an assistant editor at a local newspaper. So around this time he also began speaking at the annual Sarva Dharma Sammelan, which is a meeting of all faiths. It was also held in Jabalpur, and it was organized by the Taranpathi Jain community, which Chandra was born into. He also vehemently denied his parents' request to marry, so he was like, constructs of marriage and religion, not for me, no thank you, BB. So, later, he stated that he became spiritually enlightened on the 21st of March, 1952, at age 21. And I'm just going to be honest with you, if a 21-year-old says that they have become spiritually enlightened, I'm not going to believe them.
I'm going to question that shit.
That doesn't seem right to me. I feel like you don't even know what life is like. You don't even know what the world is like at that point. How can you become spiritually enlightened? According to him, he had a mystical experience while sitting under a tree.
It does it for nature, man.
You know, and I almost wonder, based on like how the cult goes, I wonder if he lost his virginity on that date.
Oh, okay. He had a spiritual experience underneath a tree.
He had a mystical experience while under a tree at age 21.
Yeah, all right.
Kind of adds up.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's speculation on my part. I don't know. It's not in any of his biographies, but that...
Maybe that's something, like something he didn't want to like actually admit, but also was just like, that date meant a lot to me.
Yeah,
changed
that was
my
a
life.
good day. That tree. Good tree.
Good tree. All right.
Yeah, so... in 1955, he completed his BA in philosophy at D.N. Jain College, and he pursued his MA in philosophy at the University of Sagar, which he completed in 1957 with distinction. He then secured a teaching position at Raipur Sanskrit College, but he was asked to transfer shortly after by the vice-chancellor because he was considered a danger to his students' morality, character, and religion.
That's a lot of things.
That's a lot of things. That's a cult leader.
That's a lot of things. That's not just like, hey, he's kind of a bad teacher. Like they're like, no, he's an actual threat.
He's a motherfucking threat. Is what he is.
Remove him. Oh my gosh.
A danger to students' morality, character, and religion. I'm like, whew. So he was then hired as a lecturer in Jabalpur University in 1958 because I guess they didn't read the termination records.
Yeah.
And he was then promoted to a full-time professor in 1960.
Okay. Wow. Gotta check your references, guys. Pro tip if you're hiring people.
Yeah, please, check their line of work. So at this point, he was considered an exceptionally intelligent man who had overcome the deficiencies of his small-town education.
All right.
I'll also say, during this time, the caste system was really in place. So if you guys don't know, the Indian caste system, it's a lot of, different layers. So, you have, the nobles, and you have, the scribes, and you have, the merchants. And, everyone is kind of broken up into castes. And so being poor or being, from, the poverty area, it was like you were dirt. The dirt people walked on was better than you were.
So it's very hard to rise above that, then, I'm assuming?
it was, moving from caste to caste, very, very difficult. So the fact that he came from this small town, and I don't think he was poor in any regard, but I think that he was of a lower caste. And so people were celebrating, oh, you're very smart, and you're very intelligent, and you're very opinionated for someone who came from that sort of distinction. So
interesting. Okay.
Something to keep in mind. So at the same time that he became the professor, he started traveling through India under the pseudonym Acharya Rajneesh. So Acharya means teacher, and Rajneesh was a childhood nickname. And we'll recognize Rajneesh because, of course, the cult that we're talking about is called Rajneeshpuram.
Ah, well, that's not an ego thing at all.
No, it all comes from a childhood nickname.
All right.
Yeah. So while he was traveling, he would give speeches about Gandhi, socialism, and institutionalized religions.
Okay.
By 1969, he was given full-blown speeches about how socialism and capitalism were intertwined, and that poverty shouldn't be worshipped as a more spiritual state, and that India should revolutionize and build great wealth and change the way that they conducted religion. So, really, really small topics.
Yeah.
Right off the get-go.
Yeah, wow. He, 0 to 100 real quick for that guy. He went from, small teachings to, let's revolutionize!
Pretty much, but I also, I kind of get it, being the eldest of a family of 11 kids.
Yeah.
And being the eldest male as well. And he doesn't, he's you need to marry, you need to be a good Hindu, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to live this way. And for someone who's been told, he doesn't want to do things and people make those allowances so he doesn't have to do these things, I'm sure that felt very, it felt very suffocating.
Yeah.
You're I don't want to marry, I don't want to be a Hindu, I don't want to do this, I don't want to be teach these things, I don't want to conform to what everyone else has to do, I want to just do this. So instead I'm going to talk about communism because it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's one of those where it's if I was someone in this neighborhood and I was hearing these talks, I'd be maybe he's got a point.
Honestly, I know. I'm sitting here kind of I understand, it's weird, looking at these cults at the very beginning, because you're how did these people get sucked in? But then you really dive into what they're saying at the beginning and you're it's not that bad. It's really not that bad at the beginning. It just gets worse.
Yeah, it's where we are at the beginning, perfectly fine. The steps that we took to ensure it.
That's the problem.
That's the problem. That's the. We had that as well with Anne Hamilton Byrne, where at the beginning I was let's make her president. She's pro LGBTQ.
She's helping unhappy women leave their marriages and stuff. Like you said, she's leading this little revolution, and how can you be against that? It's when we start to get into oh, I'm God. Okay, well,
yeah, you're God, you're kidnapping children. Ooh,
let's just take a step back. Yeah, so it's hard.
So it's definitely one of those where the cult throughout its life does make a lot of good points.
Yeah.
But you've got to remember that they are a cult.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's a cult. So they did cult things, and no matter the intentions, bad decisions were made.
Yeah.
So
I'm saying this with no forethought of the future.
You have
I'm just
no idea what we're.
I don't know where we're headed. I'm just right now things don't sound that bad, but I can only imagine it gets worse, or else we wouldn't be talking about it. So
yes, if this is where we stop, we would not be talking about this. But unfortunately, it's a two-parter, so you know that they do a lot.
Yeah. All right.
Perfect. So. Yeah, so it was all about, let's talk about revolutionizing India, let's celebrate wealth, let's become a first world nation, let's take after the US, let's take after the UK, let's follow Europe and America's footsteps because they got something figured out that we don't. So naturally he was a controversial leader, but he became very popular amongst businessmen and merchants, the high wealth, revolution, industrialize. And of course, businessmen and merchants, they have money. So he actually began holding individual consultations for spiritual development and transformative practices.
Wow.
In exchange for donations.
I was going to say, how much was he making from this scheme? It sounds too good to be true.
I think if I remember correctly, it was like a really small flat fee where you could sign up.
Okay.
But then during the service, it was encouraged that you would donate to further your spiritual awakening.
Yeah, the more you donate, the closer you are to God, baby.
The more you pay, the better you are.
Yeah, it gives you a better seat, in the house of God.
In 1962, he began leading meditation camps, so that would be 3 to 10 sessions a day. Oh. And the meditation centers started featuring his teachings, which at this point were called Life Awakening Movement or the Jivan Jagruti Andolan.
All right.
I nearly tripped over that.
You did a great job.
In 1966, he resigned from his teaching post at the request of the Jabalpur University after leading a very controversial speaking tour. So they're like, oh, you're a danger to children's morality, personality, and religion. We don't want you as a teacher. If only we'd known.
Wow.
If only we'd known. If there was something that indicated that something had happened before. But no.
Well, couldn't see this coming.
Yes. Who could have foreseen this? So, in 1966, Rajneesh met a young woman by the name of Sheila Patel.
Oh, okay.
So, she's a very important character.
I was just about to say she sounds important.
She has a name.
Yeah, she has
an
name.
important sounding name. She is named in this story. So, Sheila Ambalal Patel was born in 1949 in Gujarat state in India. She was born to Ambala and Maniben Patel and was the youngest of 6 children. At age 16, she and a group of others visited Rajneesh to hear him speak, where she became enraptured with his teachings.
God. They always do.
Yeah, it's a very impressionable age, especially in the 60s in India during the caste system with Hindu in charge.
She's 16. There's this, maybe she sees him as a handsome guy and he's talking about how the future's going to change and she's got to listen to her and she's like, oh my gosh, heart flutters.
Yeah. You know, a lot of the extra notes that I had said, like, they just had a very professional relationship. I am convinced that this woman was in love with this man. Convinced.
She sounds like kind of like a groupie at first, almost. Like, I don't even know too much about her, but she's like, I'm gonna follow this man anywhere.
Like, even in the documentary, this is the fun fact for you, the documentary, we have interviews with Sheila, because she's still alive, spoiler alert.
Okay.
And she even, it goes as far as to say, it's like, I was in love with him.
Okay.
100%.
So she acknowledges.
It's her own, it's her own admission, but they, as far as anyone knows, they never had a relationship. It was more just, she loved him, and he was the next Buddha, so he could not.
Okay, all right. Sus, but sure.
Sure. So, later on, she even said that her father had said to her that if Rajneesh lives long enough, he will become the next Buddha.
Her own dad said that?
Her own father said this.
All right.
So, like, I think Rajneesh was creating a bit of a name for himself. Like, even now, it's not a cult at this point. He's just a teaching guru. He just has opinions. People go and listen to him speak for a couple of donations. He doesn't even have, like, a base of operations. He's still traveling from place to place to place. There's no, like, place to go see him. He's just, like, he's almost like a wandering minstrel at this point.
Okay.
But he was making a name for himself. He was saying, you know, like, the government's not correct. Religion is not correct. This is not how we should be living. We should be following America. We should be following Europe. And we're not. And we should be doing that.
Yeah.
So, I get it. So, at age 18, Sheila moved to New Jersey in the United States and attended Montclair State College.
Okay.
So, she's out of the picture for now, but we'll see her again real soon. So, 1968, Acharya Rajneesh starts a lecture series, which was later published as From Sex to the Superconsciousness.
Did you read it?
I did not read this book, no. Not like I didn't have a lot of time. I only had 2 weeks to put this together. But I did get a synopsis of it, and it was basically a discourse that called for more open acceptance of sex and sexuality. Okay. So it was basically like, we should, like, marriage shouldn't be like the chains that, like, keep sex away from you. Being gay is okay. Being a lesbian is all right. You want to be in an open marriage, or you want to be polyamorous? Absolutely. You were born male but identify as more feminine? Sure. It was very, like,
how can you argue with this guy, like, at the beginning? You know what I mean? Like, he's preaching good things, but it...
Yeah, it was very much, it was free love. It was love who you want to love. Be who you want to be open about who you love.
Yeah.
And, like, is it wrong?
It's just sad, right? Because it's like, does he really actually believe this, or is he saying these things to get to, like, a marginalized group of individuals who needed someone, clearly, to be that person for them? Like...
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. I think in the beginning, I think at this point he did. I think he was frustrated at the government, the Indian government at the time. I think he was frustrated with being the eldest male of a large family. I think he was frustrated at, like, people didn't understand his opinions. I think he was frustrated that people were coming at him.
Okay.
They were like, "You're wrong. You have to be this. You have to be this way."
Yeah.
Because our religion says it should be this way. So I think at this point he was like, I just want to have sex when I want to have sex. I just want to love who I want to love. I don't want to be forced into an arranged marriage. I don't want to be this. I don't want to do this. And I think people really gravitated to that. And I think he recognized that people gravitated to that, so he shifted his focus that way.
Okay.
So I think it was kind of a feedback loop in a little way.
Gotcha.
But of course, this book, Sex to the Superconsciousness, earned Rajneesh the title of the sex guru. And he never really lost this title. Throughout the whole of the cult's life, he was kind of referred to as the sex guru in both India and in the United States. And it really was because he was preaching this, like, love who you want to love, be open with your love, hold hands in public, you want to have sex on the beach, go for it. Like, just be the way that you want to be.
Yeah.
And yeah.
All right. What a title.
The Hindu government at the time was very conservative, so they were like, whoa, you can't do that. And he was like, why not?
Yeah, watch me.
Yeah, the Hindu government hated it. But 1969, nice. He was invited to speak at the Second World Hindu Conference, despite the complaints of some of the Hindu leaders. So this was run by the Hindu government. It was a conference, and he was invited to speak.
Okay.
It was here that he was quoted saying, "Any religion which considers life meaningless and full of misery and teaches the hatred of life is not a true religion. Religion is an art that shows how to enjoy life." So, from what I understand of Hinduism, it follows, Buddha, and it's all about, you give up everything to become enlightened, and then from your enlightenment, you become a better person. So it's almost like a fetishization of poverty, of suffering, of you have to be miserable and be at your lowest where you have nothing, and then you will gain everything.
Yeah.
And I think he was very much like, why do we worship something that teaches you to be miserable, teaches you to suffer, to be poor, to be the lowest of the low? And then even then you might not even actually reach enlightenment. You'll just be unhappy.
Yeah.
And I think, I guess he's wrong. Like, do you want to dedicate your life to suffering, or do you want to enjoy the life that you have been given and just live the way that you want to live?
Yeah.
So I can understand why he became as popular as he did.
Yeah.
He talked about the caste system, and he also talked about how it he compared how India treats members of the lower castes as well as women like animals. Mm. So kind of, we're fetishizing poverty, but then we're also treating the people who are actually born into poverty like trash. No bueno.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's hard. I'm trying not to say more because it's like, I know it's going to get bad soon. It's like, I get it. Yeah. I get where he's coming from.
I think it's a bit like a Kemper, right? We're allowed to, sympathize at the beginning, but as soon as, the shifts start to happen, you're like, maybe we should be thinking about this.
There really always is. We see it time and time again in these cases where that shift happens. Like you said at the beginning, things start out, almost good-natured, and it just somehow, it just gets so bad so quickly. And it's like, man, was it always, gonna turn out like this, no matter what? It really makes you question. Or was this just the perfect storm of events for this to just go south?
Yeah, I think this one is less of a perfect storm, but it really was... it was almost like a perfect environment that something festered in. And we'll get into it when we get into, when the cult actually becomes. But I think it'll become apparent very quickly, how we got to this point.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, 1970. Rajneesh presents his dynamic meditation for the first time in public. So dynamic meditation was made up of rapid breathing, dancing, music, moving around. It was very not what we consider meditation to be. Because, of course, when you and I think of meditation, what do you think of?
You sit still. There's nothing. You clear your head.
Yeah, you kind of go internal, don't you? You find peace within your mind and your soul. You shut off, outside influences.
Completely. Like you said, you are in a quiet space. You totally get introspective. It's a very interpersonal experience.
Yes, and now Rajneesh is coming forward and he's like, hey, we've been getting that wrong.
Okay.
Listen to this. So the documentary, Wild Wild Country, it listed it as a 4-part meditation. So part 1 was erratic breathing. It was a lot of it was a lot of like really like getting your heart rate going,
get yourself lightheaded.
Yeah, pretty much. Then a part 2 was a physical explosion. So it was designed to let all internal feelings out. This was dancing, running, screaming, shouting, flailing, whatever you needed to do to get all of your like aggressive energy out.
Okay.
Part 3 was jumping up and down, and every time your feet hit the ground, you shouted, "Hoo." So it's just, lots of up and down, just hoo, 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 hoo.
Did you do the hand thing too?
Yeah, a lot of the documentary, everyone's doing a hand thing.
Okay.
And then part 4 was silence, where you kept still and quiet, either lying or sitting down. So it was kind of just like this rest period after this massive physical explosion.
Okay, so there was still a regular one part of it was still like kind of regular meditation almost, but it was like get all that energy out first and then do the laying down part.
But I think in this one, part 2, which is the physical explosion, that was the important part. That was the part that lasted the longest.
Oh, okay.
Like, and the rest period was really like, it was like a cool down after a workout. It was like the 2-minute afterwards. Just like, okay, good job, everybody. You did your meditation. I'm really proud of you. Okay. And, maybe the silence really was like the quote unquote meditation, but the parts that were encouraged were part 2 and part 3.
Oh, okay.
So, after this, Rajneesh left Jabalpur and moved himself and his teachings to Mumbai at the end of June 1970.
Okay.
September same year, he initiated his first group of disciples.
Okay.
Now, this is a common cult behavior that I think, at least I've noticed, and we at least saw with Anne Hamilton Byrne. It's when, you lose who you were and adopt a new person, a new name, a new identity.
You have legit followers who are willing to throw away their life for you.
With the initiation of his new disciples, this was the act of assuming a new name and conforming to a new wardrobe. So not only did his disciples change their names, they also had to conform to a new dress code.
Okay.
So Rajneesh's followers would wear the traditional saffron dress of the Hindu holy men. It's usually like a long, just kind of like one piece of fabric robe. And this also included a mala, which was a beaded necklace with a locket at the end, and that contained Rajneesh's image. So, kind of like, we have in Christianity, you've got the pictures of Jesus, you've got the cross, you've got that religious symbol.
Yeah.
This one was, you had a picture of Rajneesh.
Wow, all right.
He did, however, stress that he was not to be worshipped. And instead, he was simply a catalytic agent, like the sun is to flowers, encouraging them to open.
I don't think he fully... Yeah, sure, okay.
I think, it's a humble brag.
Yeah, that's like exactly it. He's like, no,
you're not worshipping me. You're just worshipping my ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh.
With this new wardrobe as well, all of his followers were now wearing different shades of orange, red, maroon, and purple.
Okay.
This color.
Nice. Looking like a pretty sunset.
Looking at like footage of the cult, it is very visually appealing, I will say, because everyone is dressed they're not dressed like the same, but they're dressed in the same colors.
Yeah.
It's all, reds, oranges, maroons, purples. It's like, it's very warm. It's almost like a garden in a weird way.
Yeah.
It's very peaceful to look at. So I get it.
Yeah.
But of course, when you you have to conform to this particular dress code. Like, is it your own identity? Like, you were allowed to choose what kind of garments you like, especially with, like, when the Western influence started to come in, you were allowed to dress however you wanted as long as the colors matched.
Okay, so that's what I was literally going to ask. So these people are just, like, going to, like, normal, like, Abercrombie and Finch and just getting those colors and stuff in that wardrobe?
Not to that degree, but sort of. I think at this point, it's just robes. So when you would come to his teachings and you became his disciple, you were in proper robes. But then as it evolved and got a little bit more, like with a little bit more Western influence, they became, t-shirts, jeans, suit jackets. And I think that they were made special. They didn't go to, like, standard stores. They didn't go to malls. They didn't go there.
But they wore this all the time? This was a 24/7, like, you only dressed in this color. This is your life now.
Yes, there was your night clothes, it was your day clothes, your swimwear, everything were these colors.
That's like Sims, like, to the extreme. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. But, kind of culty. But also, I fell victim of watching the documentary. I'm like, wow, everyone looks so pretty.
Yeah, I know. I'm like man, I could
serene.
do that. I just pick a color and just go with it forever.
Yeah, and you were allowed to mix and match colors. Like, there are people in the documentary that are wearing like a full suit, but like their shirt is like a soft pink, and the jacket itself is like this like dark maroon color, and then their tie is like a darker purple, and it's coordinated.
Yeah,
it's very clean looking. It's just you have to wear those colors.
Oh, I thought you got assigned one color as a person, and it was like, oh, but you just in this range of colors, we have like 5. Here's the code, the color code on the wheel, and you have to stay within this, like...
You gotta spin your color wheel.
Yeah, like, I don't know, I thought that was how it worked. I'm like, how does it get assigned?
I think red, the like a dark like, maroon red was the primary color. That was like, if you can, wear red. But oranges I've seen were accepted, like very light purples were accepted, like eggplant purples I've seen, like it ranges all over the documentary.
This is such a small detail, but I'm just so curious about it.
It is, but it's an important detail because it comes up later.
Okay.
So I do want to hammer in. It's like right now this is when this behavior starts to happen, but it evolves, and the whole way through this story, all of the followers are dressed this way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not like they're hiding. Like they look like just like you. They look just like me. Like you could see this cult for miles because they were in packs. They were all in the same color, and they all had the mala never left. So even if they were wearing suits, they were always wearing those beaded necklaces with the picture of Rajneesh.
Were they big? How big were these necklaces? I am curious. Like
about they've been to like mid chest.
So about the size of like an actual necktie, about basically.
Yeah, like if it would go with the suit jacket instead of a tie. Some of the lawyers and businessmen in the cult would wear them instead of ties.
All right. Okay. Curious.
Yeah. And sometimes like people would wear them as belts. That was another thing. As long as you had it on your person, I think you could accessorize however you wanted to.
Wow. So it was really fashion forward, this cult.
It was. And like once again, it's like, wow, like you're allowed to dress the way you want as long as you conform to the color. Like how is that very much different from like a workforce like in dress code?
Yeah.
Yeah, instead it's just your religion. It's like it's this, if you look at like nun habits or like priests, like how they have to conform to dress for their religion. Like, is this more liberal in that religious sense, or is this more conforming because you have to wear a certain color?
I guess it depends on what you like, right? Your personal taste, like.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that the issue with this cult, the kind of what caught them caught, is that they're not like their behaviors are not so different from like organized religion. They just were one different from what we consider an organized religion, and 2, they kind of took it to the nth degree. So, but people are like, oh, they're always wearing the same robes. I'm like, but if you look at nun habits and you look at priest robes, and if you look at what Mormons are doing and whatever, like all these other religions, how do their religious members dress?
It's true.
So, but at least with cults, the fact that it was a mandated dress code and this was like for casual followers, that becomes a bit of a difference. Where in organized religion, nuns and things, these are people who have dedicated their lives to religion.
Yeah.
These are not ordinary folk who, like, I'm going to the bank after this to like work my job. I'm gonna work in my office. No, they had to wear these clothes all the time.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. It's very strange looking at the documentary. It's like you see these packs of people in these colors. You're like, oh, there they are. They're the followers.
Okay. All right.
So, to derail us from our wardrobe talk, it was also around this time that Sheila, remember her, got married to a man named Mark Harris Silverman, who was an American citizen from Illinois.
Okay.
She actually met him at university in New Jersey, at Montclair. She then changed her name to Sheila P. Silverman, and in 1972, the couple returned to India to pursue spiritual studies. And Sheila already knew exactly where to go. Yeah, they joined Rajneesh's following. It was here that Sheila changed her name again, and she was now Ma Anand Sheila. It was about this time as well that Rajneesh acquired his first secretary, Lakshmi Thakarsi Kurua, who changed her name to Ma Yoga Lakshmi, which is easier to say. In terms of the Rajneeshi movement, the secretary was more than someone who took notes. This was like their personal assistant, their personal secretary. The secretary was the administrator of the movement, and they had tremendous power within the community. They were basically second in command. So, with Lakshmi's help, the movement began raising money with the goal that Rajneesh would no longer need to travel, and instead could settle down and build a permanent congregation, his own little church.
Wow, okay. Big step.
Yeah, but I mean, like, he's still traveling from place to place to place. Like, he's basically, still a wandering minstrel movement, but now he has this pack of red-robed followers following him. And now he has a personal secretary. And then Sheila is now also one of these people who are following around in the red robes.
Wow. With her husband still?
Yes. Her husband changed his name to Prem Chinmaya. So he was also a dedicated follower. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, if I refer to Sheila or Chinmaya, that's Sheila and her husband.
Gotcha.
Perfect. So, in December 1970, Rajneesh moved to the Woodlands apartments in Mumbai, where people could go to visit him and listen to his lectures. This is where his Western audience began to pay attention. So, I don't know, maybe it was just because he had, like, there was a place that people could visit him now. He wasn't just like, hope maybe we see him here.
Yeah.
Now that he had a specific place, this little apartment, people could find him much easier.
Okay.
So now that his Western audience is paying attention, because of that, his traveling stopped, and he no longer spoke at open public meetings. Now people chose to come listen to him. He no longer did these religious conventions. It was in 1971 that he adopted the title Bhagwan Shri Rajneesh. So he's changed his name again. Shri is the equivalent of the English word sir, so that's it's an honorific. And it can also mean prosperity, because it comes from Lakshmi. Bhagwan means blessed one, or a more direct translation is God-man.
Oh, okay.
So his name is now God-man Sir Rajneesh.
It's a good name.
Yeah. Bhagwan essentially means that a person who wears their divinity outwards. So it's once again, it's a type of honorific, but he is now adopting, this is his actual title. Rajneesh had this to say about his name change. I loved the term. I said, at least for a few years, that will do. Then we can drop it.
All right. He's like, yeah, no, that'll do for now. That's fine. We'll see.
Godman's fine. We'll see what we move on to after this.
Yeah, like, you never know. Might get promoted again.
Yeah. I have a quote here as well from him, just to be like how he was handling these permanent talks as well. Now I am no more a teacher, and you are not here as students. I am here to impart being. I am here to make you awaken. I am not here to give knowledge. I am going to give you knowing. And that is a totally different dimension.
All right. So he's like, I stepped it up.
Yeah. He dropped the title Acharya, which meant teacher, and now he has switched to Godman. So now he is converting from I am no longer a teacher, I am a religious figure in a weird way.
Okay.
So, Mumbai, unfortunately, had its drawbacks. And it actually took a huge toll on Rajneesh's health. It was during his time in these apartments he was diagnosed with diabetes, asthma, and a number of really nasty allergies. So now he is a very frail man.
Wow. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, no, and he had health issues for the rest of his life from this. And so I think that's something to also keep in mind during all of this, is that he is not well.
Yeah.
But of course, there's a lot of that frailty that, Gandhi being of a frail religious leader, I think that people drew a lot of that. It was like, his physical body is unwell because his spiritual power is too powerful for him.
So it worked really well for the narrative of the whole thing for him.
I think so.
Wow.
So, 1974, he moved his congregation to Pune with the help of one of his disciples, Ma Yoga Mukta, who was also known as Catherine Venizelos, who was a Greek shipping heiress, so wealthy Western follower. And, isn't this very Anne Hamilton? She got the doctors, she got the lawyers, she got the...
Yeah.
It's these wealthy people who are looking for satisfaction, I think.
Yeah.
I have everything, but I don't have this spiritual satisfaction. And here's this religious leader who's saying, you don't have to give up your wealth. You don't have to be poor. You don't have to be... anti-money. You just
have to share it with me.
Yeah, like you can still be fulfilled. I just give, I get a small portion. And they're like, yeah absolutely.
You pay your tax to God and you get the happiness. It's a really sweet deal.
It is, and I'm sure a lot of people did get a lot of satisfaction from this and throughout the whole story, much like your cult.
Yeah.
It's a tale as old as time.
Yeah, like you said, I can't take that away from the people that experienced it, absolutely, and nor I guess what I want to. I don't know. I guess it depends how this turns out. But I mean, like you said, religion is a very personal thing, and so it's hard to judge it when people are going through it.
I think while I was doing all of this research, and of course I've been living in this cult for 2 weeks. Yeah. I've kind of come to the conclusion. I have no issues with religion. I have no issues with if that's what you need, if that's something you want to explore, if that's something that you personally really, really want in your life, 100%. But the religion has to be the betterment of the individual and not the betterment of somebody else.
Yeah.
So religion should make you a better person. It should fill you spiritually, and it shouldn't come at the cost of you losing your identity and you having to revere somebody else as the most important thing in your life.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I pull this thing. It's like, absolutely, if you want to give donations because you're thankful, 100%, like, do it. But don't
it's
do
the
it.
same reason people pay their Twitch streamers when they're watching.
Yeah.
They're like, they really appreciate the entertainment, they appreciate what they're contributing, but like you said, it shouldn't be a requirement.
Yeah, it shouldn't be like, oh, I have a wealthy heiress, I have a wealthy businessman, I have a doctor, I have all of these people from wealthy backgrounds. Well, why don't you buy me my house? Why don't you buy me my airplane? Like, the money should go to the betterment of the teachings, not the betterment of the lifestyle of the leader.
Agreed.
So, yeah, it's all about, making sure that you're bettering yourself as an individual. And, make sure, just be a good person. I think that's it. Be a good person.
Yeah. Whatever motivation you need for that, just be a good person.
Just be a good person. That's all we ask for at the end of the day. Be a good person.
Yeah.
So, with the help of this Greek shipping heiress, they acquired a property that's commonly referred to as the Pune Ashram. So, Ashram basically is kind of like a monastery. It's their own little church. It's their commune. It's now their place of operations. So, Rajneesh stayed at the Pune Ashram from 1974 to 1981.
Okay.
And during this time, he developed his little discourse, his little teachings into a full-blown religious commune. So it was the ashram was a 6-acre property with 2 adjoining houses at the center of it, and it was full of really, really lush gardens. So it was very peaceful. There are fountains everywhere. There's gardens. There's flowers. There's footage of it in the documentary. It's actually very beautiful. It's a very beautiful little plot of land. It was like a little oasis in Pune. So here, Rajneesh began regular audio recordings and later video recordings of his teachings. He also began printing his discourses for worldwide distribution. So now we're getting international BB.
Wow. All right.
From this huge spike in Western audience. And it almost became like an attractive thing where it's like, oh, here's this guru, the sex guru. He was teaching, open love and freedom and break away the chains of conformed religion. Come over here. You get to wear pretty colors and we get to sing and dance and talk. And, you can just hear him speak and you can just be there with him and learn and get spiritual fulfillment. So people are like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I'm sure, like you said, a lot of people just taking vacations, or I can imagine a lot of college students, that were like, I'm going to go take a year off and backpack and find myself. They're like, you know what? He's got a point. Yeah. I'm going to go visit that guy and learn about myself.
Yeah, there are people in the documentary who even said that. It's like, oh, I was finishing college and I didn't know what to do. And then my roommate had gone to India for a year, a semester, and he came back spiritually enlightened. So I went to go where he went and I learned everything. And it's people would word of mouth, it spread like wildfire.
Yeah, how those things do.
Yeah, there were even people on when they were applying for visas to visit India, they would even say I'm just going to see this guy.
Yeah, that's a big attraction.
Yeah. Pretty soon after this, the ashram soon started featuring fun family activities like Arts and Crafts Center. Woo! So it was actually in this Arts and Crafts Center that the followers could make jewelry, clothing, ceramics, and they could also host performances of theater and music, which the visitors would pay to participate in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
You could be like, want to make this craft? That's $5 for the wood. You want to participate in this? $3 to enter.
I don't think it was particularly expensive, but of course it was a novelty. These sessions would fill up, and you would make shoes. You would make necklaces. You would make bracelets. You would make whatever you wanted to make. You would connect with people from all over the world, and I think it was it was a $10 entry fee. It wasn't break the bank. It wasn't an exclusive to the wealthy clients. Anyone could do it.
And if you're flying to India for the sole purpose of going to meet this guy in general and whatnot, what is $10 extra to attend one of these like you said once in a lifetime classes?
Yeah, But yeah, there's little resorts. You come here, you pay for paragliding, you pay for scuba diving, you pay for, beachside yoga. This is no different. It's part of the package.
Yeah.
This is where it started to get a little bit different, though, because in 1975, the ashram welcomed therapists in. which means the community could now do therapy group meditations. And that became a massive source of income. And this is the 70s, baby. Therapy, what is therapy but for those quote-unquote diagnosed schizophrenics, you know, sitting in prisons and you know, these... It wasn't something that people just actively pursued unless there was something actively wrong with you. And here is this ashram in India where they're hiring these therapists to just be like, yeah, like, do you want to just talk about how you're feeling? Like, let's just like break into just the surface level of like, what do you want? What do you need? What do you desire in your life? And they would do these group meditations of, you know, fulfillment, and they would do marriage counselings, couples therapy, everything.
Wow, that's...
And it's like, you know... therapy.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's a good thing. Like, how can you be against it, right? It's therapy, like you said, but it's like, but if it's not done in the right way, if it's being used as a coercive tool to be like, wow, your problem is the lack of religion in your life.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I feel like it's just another thing to kind of funnel people back towards the church and, like you said, charge them for more things.
These weren't therapists hired, like, trained by the commune. These were, like, actually licensed therapists that they would hire.
It's still sus.
It's, you know, fair. We'll get into it because it's like the weirdness is going to start appearing very shortly. But but can you imagine, like, it's the 70s, like therapy's not a thing, and then suddenly like, here, you can just go here, and then they'll like listen to you about how sad you are, and it's like, yeah, okay,
yeah, sign me up, baby.
Yeah, like, and I can do it with people who are just like me. Perfect.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, so the ashram was often described as an exciting and intense place to be. It was very emotionally charged, sometimes described as a madhouse carnival atmosphere. Everyone would be dressed in orange or maroon robes. Everyone would be speaking to everyone. People would hug, they would dance, they would walk, they would engage each other. There were people like sitting reading in the gardens. There were people doing arts and crafts in like the little hut. There were people putting on performances. There was music. Like, it was basically just kind of a beautiful little hot pot of a bunch of different cultures and and actual religions and beliefs and ethnicities and genders. It was everyone kind of just came to be in this little commune.
Yeah.
So, you know,
at this point it does. It sounds really nice and peaceful.
Yeah. On a very surface level, this is awesome.
Yeah.
A typical day would start at 6 a.m. with dynamic meditation, the 4-step process we talked about a little bit earlier. And then at 8 a.m., Rajneesh would give a 60 to 90-minute spontaneous lecture in the ashram's auditorium, where he would comment on religious writings, or he would Q&A with his new visitors.
But is it spontaneous if it's planned every day?
I don't think it was planned. I think he was just like, I'm just going to talk for an hour, and I'll just say what I want to say. I think it was more like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't spontaneous like, I'm going to do a talk today, surprise everybody. It was more like, I don't know what the topic's going to be, but we're going to talk for an hour.
Gotcha. Just whatever's relevant at the time. Like, how we feeling today, guys? This is the topic. All right, let's discuss it.
Yeah, someone came to me with this issue yesterday, and I wanted to talk about it in front of all of you. It was more like that sort of thing.
I respect that.
Yeah. These lectures were usually held in Hindi, but later on he would actually alternate the next one in English. So one day he would do Hindi, next day he would do English. One day he would do Hindi, next day he would do English.
Well, that's nice of him.
He would speak of the new man, which was his ultimate state of being, where one would transcend gender, race, color, faith, and nationality. They would simply become awakened.
Is that still here on Earth that happens?
What, his talks, or
becoming the new man?
Yeah.
Becoming the new man.
Yeah, it would be what humanity should become. It would be, like, you as a human being you would lose your shackles of gender, race, color, and faith. You would simply be awakened. It was a state of being. It was kind of his own form of enlightenment.
Okay.
Yeah. No heaven required, baby.
It just sounds like one of those things that, like, once your soul transcends, then you'll really, like, it sounds deathy to me. I don't know.
I hold on to that.
Okay.
Hold on to it. It does sound deathy a little bit, but hold on to that. We'll put a pin in that one. Just leave that one.
It's in my pocket for now.
Yeah, just put it in your pocket. Put it in your hand. As the day would go on, they would hold various meditations and therapy sessions throughout the day, and these were described as intense.
Oh, how so?
Well, let's talk about them. So there were multiple sessions that followers could participate in. So visitors could either consult the Rajneesh for which one that he thought that they should belong to, or they could choose whichever session just spoke to them in the moment.
Okay.
Alongside therapy group sessions, which are the more tame ones, there were experimental sessions with varying degrees of physical encounters. So, varying degrees of physical encounters includes physical aggression or sexual encounters between the participants.
I was worried when you said physical. I'm like, that's a very, like...
Yeah.
And he is the sex guru, so...
He was called the sex guru for something.
All right, so they were having orgies.
Pretty much.
Sound like religious orgies.
Religious orgies. There's recorded footage of some of these early experimental sessions that I watched.
Ma'am, I'm so sorry.
Not knowing what was going on. And it's a lot. I'll describe one of the particular session that I watched, because it wasn't in one of the orgy ones, but it was one of those like mid-betweens. So
what?
Yeah, so it was.
What's a mid? I've never been to an orgy. What's a mid-between orgy?
I've never been to an orgy either.
No, well, you seem to have more knowledge than I do. You watch.
I'm telling you what I saw in this video. So it's a lot of screaming. Like people were fighting. There was like throwing bodies against each other. They're all clothed at this point. They're screaming, fighting, shouting.
This is the foreplay to the orgy?
I guess. There's a lot of hair pulling. There's a lot of like moaning and swaying. Then everybody gets naked.
Okay.
I didn't know what was going to happen.
This is already a lot.
It was very jarring. This is the 70s. So, this footage actually got released in the US later. This footage that I watched got released in cinemas in the US later.
Oh, okay.
Can you imagine people in the 70s watching this?
No, I can't actually. In the theater with theater. Could you imagine and like you imagine not knowing, I guess, like what you're going to see, like fully, like you don't like understand, and so you're like, hey, mom and dad, like I heard about this like film, this foreign film, like with this like it's like religious, like you want to go, and then it's just you're sitting there in a theater with your parents watching an orgy.
Yeah, and like this, though, the footage in the cinemas was released at the time, like during kind of like the peak of the cult. So it was a lot of like, do you want to see what the cult group sessions look like? Like, would you like to know more about this weird thing that's happening in Oregon? And people were like, yeah, I guess I kind of want to know what's happening in Oregon. And they would just watch this footage. And it was just like, it's very jarring. It's very, very jarring. Even for like someone nowadays, it's very jarring footage just to see just these group of people go into like this state, and then they start screaming and shouting and like throwing themselves against each other. They all get naked at one point. There's a lot of nudity in the documentary, by the way, so don't watch that if you don't want to watch. There's a lot of nudity.
Man.
But yeah,
I'm glad you watched it, so I don't have to.
Yeah, I watched it, so you don't have to, but it's a very interesting documentary, but it includes part of the footage of this thing. But of course, that's how it starts. It's just this footage of these people basically going at each other, either trying to murder or fuck each other. And then it just ends kind of abruptly with everyone completely zonked out. Like, they're all kind of just, like, lying there. Like,
it sounds like a lot of physical exertion, I mean.
Yeah, it was like, there's a lot of naked cuddling. There was embracing. There were, like, hug circles going on. It was like... It was all just kind of like, it was almost like an apology for like what happened earlier in a weird way. It was you know, it's very like, but it's like, it's consent in a weird way. Like, it didn't start off with consent, but it ended with like, really like, I'm sorry, like we're all connecting, like we're all there for that, we all experienced that. And it like, so I kind of like, these sessions weren't designed as sessions of abuse. I can say that much. Like, they probably just, it was really easy to get out of hand. Because people would just, expel. And they weren't, like, and from what I can see from this footage, like, they weren't aware, they weren't really paying attention to each other. They were just expelling personally, and they were taking it out on other people as if they were props.
Yeah.
And then they only really became people again at the end of it. So I can understand how these got out of control real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you wonder where the line of consent was drawn, really, with that whole thing.
And then this is the 70s. Was consent even a thing? It was like your consent was I signed up to this. So
yeah, like you said, that was not like even like a real conversation. Like you said, to that point, I mean, like if even your own partner and whatnot, like marital rape wasn't even illegal until what, like 1993. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 1996? I don't remember. One of those is until the 1990s.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure like the level of consent was, I want to sign up for this thing, and that was kind of just a blanket, like, okay, you agree to whatever happens to you happens.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
to say the least.
As a result of these sessions, a lot of conflicting reports of injuries began to appear in the press.
Well, I can only imagine. Yeah, I really am speechless. I'm sorry I'm not commenting more on this. Like,
No.
we talked more, I feel like, about the clothes thing. And, like, then you said this, and I'm just like, okay, that's interesting. Moving on.
No.
But I honestly, like, have no words. Like, I'm just, like...
Yeah, it's very jarring. And it's like, and unless you physically see it, I don't, like, think it's... To imagine what they were like, I don't think does justice. Because, of course, when I was doing the research, I was imagining these sessions like, like, that's really strange. And then actually seeing footage of the sessions is very different. It's a very, very different experience. So, various reports of terrible injuries would come out. One such report included a therapist receiving a broken arm after being locked in a room for 8 hours with participants who signed up for the session, and they were promptly armed with wooden weapons.
Wait, what?
Yeah, so there was an 8-hour session with a group therapy session, one of the experimental sessions, and the participants would be given wooden weapons to just expel whatever they needed to expel, and they basically beat on and broke the arm of the therapist leading the session.
I mean, like, that's awful, but I'm, like, shocked that that's all that with wooden weapon. Like, I mean, I imagine, like, a bat, you know what I mean? Or just, like, a wooden board. I don't know what a wooden weapon is.
Yeah, I don't think he was the target for the full 8 hours, but I feel like, especially at the beginning when, like, you're like, you gotta get all that energy out.
Yeah.
And I feel like, they probably wailed on each other, and they're like, that's just part of the experience, maybe. I came out with a couple of bruises, but this poor therapist who has to conduct these multiple sessions every day suddenly gets their arm broken.
Yeah, you really, I don't,
Yeah. So, violence within these particular groups was phased out. So these sessions did come to an end in 1979.
Good.
The ashram actually put out a statement about the violence saying, violence had fulfilled its function within the overall context of the ashram and as an evolving spiritual commune.
So he had he's like, yeah.
So they were like, everyone who did the violence, like, we did that. It gave us the level of lightning we needed. We don't need it anymore.
It happened. We're good. We did it. Yep, we're good.
Pretty much. So,
all right.
Another step of this was people could graduate from the meditation groups and then in turn work for the ashram. So people could now, these visitors could be like, hey, you love this so much, you want to stay? You can work here.
Yeah.
But the positions were hard, unpaid labor, and the supervisors for the positions were described as abrasive, and they were abrasive by design. They were supposed...
So who would want these jobs?
A lot of people. A lot of people wanted these jobs. Because these jobs were supposed to inspire opportunities of self-reflection and transcendence, kind of like, Hindu teachings where great suffering...
I was just about to say, wasn't this what we were trying to get away from? What the heck?
Yep.
Like, how did this loop back around to the same shit?
But isn't this it's kind of culty, where it's like, you're so in love with the teachings. Don't you just want to give everything to the teachings? And it's basically, it's unpaid hard labor, where these, like, some of the ones described in the documentary was like cleaning toilets. You became cleaning staff. You became gardeners. You became the dog's body of this ashram, basically, where it's like, we're gonna put you to work and you're just gonna do the jobs that nobody else wants to do, so the rest of us can focus on being enlightened.
Jeez.
But there was also opportunity that, once you did your dues in these hard positions, you would be granted further opportunities higher in the ashram. So, But is it worth it? I personally don't think so, but...
And yet these positions were coveted.
And people, and they were filled. I think they actually had to turn people away at some point where it's like, oh, sorry, like, we don't have any jobs going right now.
I'm sure you're not qualified enough. We got this other guy who's a doctor that decided he wants to scrub toilets, so he's just a little more qualified than you.
Yeah, and he paid us $1 million, where you're only paying us $20,000.
He's paying us to do the hard labor.
Yeah.
What a scam.
It is a scam. It is a scam. The cults are a scam.
That's just like, oh,
cults are a scam.
That's just like, wow.
Say it with me. Cults are a scam.
Cults are a scam. Man, that is just...
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And I think this is a really rare cult where we actually really get to see what's going on behind closed doors, because there is footage of everything. To this degree, there's film, there's interviews, there's survivors, we know everything that happened behind these walls. We might not have known them at the time, but the footage came out. And the documentary that I watched, it's footage of everything that was happening behind these closed doors. And it's a lot.
Yeah. No, that is really interesting because, like you said, there's so many cults that, like, we're lucky we even know about them because of how little of, like, just documentation in general there is, let alone, like, actual raw footage. Like, where they're just like, hey, let's advertise and show the world what we're doing. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, and, you know, for a cult especially, I think to be a cult, you're very insular. You don't want outsiders to know what you're up to, because 9 times out of 10, you're up to something shifty. So the fact that, you know, at least at this point, it was very like, yeah, come down to our cult. We'll beat you to death with wooden sticks, and then you'll thank us, and then you can make some shoes afterwards.
Yeah.
And if you do good work during your sessions, you can clean our toilets. It was very like, yeah, come on down to
Crazy Town.
Pretty much. It gets a little bit more insular, as we'll see, but it's one of the... And that's also what kind of baffles me. I hadn't heard of this cult, and it's so well documented.
Yeah. I've never heard of this either.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And I think, especially with what they get up to later, it's mind-boggling that I didn't know about this cult.
Yeah.
So another kind of... Speaking of things we don't want people to see hidden behind closed doors... there were also reports inside the ashram that foreign visitors were using the ashram therapies as guises for drug running and sex work.
Oh.
So these foreign visitors would, like, create sponsored sessions, and they were basically prostitution rings and fronts for selling drugs.
Jesus. Okay. How quickly the turntables.
Yeah, the turns have tabled, indeed. So a lot of people allege that Rajneesh was not directly involved. Like, he wasn't one organizing this, but he gave...
But I'm sure he didn't blind me on.
But he gave his blessing to all activities within his walls.
Exactly. He knew. He knew but didn't know. He's like, you know, if the money's good, I can pretend I didn't see.
I think that's kind of the moral of this story, is if, like, he didn't know, but he knew.
Yeah, that's just... Man.
Yeah. So, naturally, with all of this buzz, and even bad news is good news, like any press is good press, the ashram grew rapidly. By the end of the 1970s, the Pune ashram was too small to contain all of the visitors and members of this religious organization. So, Rajneesh began looking for new horizons to either set up a larger location or somewhere to add new locations.
Yeah.
The dream was this new place could house over 10,000 followers, and it would essentially become a spiritual city.
That's crazy. 10,000?
10,000 followers. Like, the sheer number, like, just to occupy an occupation of 10,000 people, all dressed the same, all doing these sessions, all preaching and going to these auditorium talks. Like...
Man.
The closest thing we kind of have akin to that is, like, Rome and the Pope. Like, a full-on religious city.
Yeah.
Like, the scale of that.
That's just unfathomable, truly, to just imagine. I cannot even...
Yeah. So the overall goal of this new location was it was designed to act as a beacon and a role model for every other city on the planet. It was going to become a utopia.
Of course it would. It sounds like it.
So, a few locations within India were picked, but nothing came of those due to conflicts between Rajneesh and the government. Because, as we've established, the government don't like him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any and all land use was blatantly and flat out refused, and this is the point where foreign visas were starting to get denied if they indicated that their destination was the ashram. So all of these wealthy visitors, these Western visitors, were like, I want to go see him. And that's the purpose of my visit. They would get turned away. They'd be like, nope, fly back to where you came from.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. Then the government canceled the tax-exempt status of the ashram, which, you know, of course, as a religious movement, you get tax.
That's a big deal.
You get tax exemption. Suddenly, the ashram had to pay $5 million from all the previous years that they hadn't been paying taxes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money to have to pay back all at once. Do they even have that?
They do. They do have this money. But that's the mind-blowing part. They have $5 million just sitting in a bank account somewhere.
Yeah, like, what the hell?
And it's these wealthy Western visitors.
That's crazy. Wow.
So, even political parties that had previously endorsed Rajneesh and his teachings actually began to back out or they would keep quiet during this kind of weird shift of power, where they're like, oh, well, you know, we've got other things to do. We can't really, you know, we can't really help you right now because, like, we're busy running the government, or we're trying to, like, acquire the government. So
Jesus.
Pretty much all of, like, any political, like, backing that this commune had, out the window. So then, May 1980, there was an attempt on Rajneesh's life.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, full-on assassination.
Excusez-moi?
Assassination plot baby.
Oh my gosh, I was not expecting that,
It
actually.
was so early, and we're not even in full cult mode yet.
Yeah, no, we just got into the 1980s. Like, what?
May 1980, a young Hindu fundamentalist named Vilas Thapa, I think is his name, Vilas Thapa, attempted to kill Rajneesh because he believed Rajneesh was a CIA agent.
Okay. That's not, like, I'm shocked that it even happened. I'm shocked at the reason.
Yeah.
It's just not, that's so out of left field for me.
You'll be even more shocked when you try to figure out how he did it. So,
Yeah, tell me.
Vilas stood up in the middle of one of Rajneesh's morning sermons, one of his spontaneous morning sermons, and he threw a knife at the spiritual leader, very nearly hitting him. It went shoo.
What? Confused Alana noises? Like, what? I'm like, I can't even...
It's like guy stands up, middle of a religious sermon, throws a knife at a guy, immediately tackled to the ground. He's like, I'm trying to kill him because he works for the CIA, and he's just like, I'm not even being attacked for the things that I'm talking about.
I literally cannot. Okay.
Yeah, so Rajneesh took this as a sign that it was time to move on and create measures to protect himself, his teachings, and his followers. Because clearly they're just coming in and trying to throw knives at me.
Yeah, that's, I mean, you gotta take measures after that.
Yeah. So at this time as well, around this time, tragedy would also strike Ma Anand Sheila. So her husband, Mark Silverman, or Prem Chimnaya, died of Hodgkin's disease at age 33. And for those of you who don't know, Hodgkin's disease is white blood cell cancer.
Okay.
It's very painful. It's very awful. He had it pretty much since moving into the commune. I think the documentary said that he had been fighting it for 8 years, and he succumbed to his illness at the age of 33.
Wow. That's so young.
He was so young. So young. But Sheila, never deterred, got married the same year to a man named John Shelfer, who was a New York bank officer.
Wow. Okay. Same year.
Same year.
That's
Pretty much a couple of months after.
Okay. Cool, Sheila.
Yeah. Sheila and John had met within the Rajneesh commune. And after they got married, he changed his name to Prem Jayananda. He also became the president of the Rajneesh Foundation International, which is basically just like the overall running operation
Yeah.
to help distribute the works, the books, the videos, the tapes. Yeah, it was their religious foundation.
I see.
Yeah. During the documentary, Sheila actually talks about her first husband's death being that, you know, she went to Rajneesh the night that he died, just before he passed away, and she was like, I think my husband's going to die. And Rajneesh said, you're not allowed to cry. Then he did pass away that night, and then she said that Rajneesh put her in a trance for 3 days after the funeral, and then she got up and she was fine, and she never felt any grief.
Then I guess it explains how she was able to get married a few months later.
You know, I think that's just the power that Rajneesh had.
I mean, yeah, if you want to be hypnotized, then I guess you'll be hypnotized, you know?
So, 1981, baby. Rajneesh's ashram holded 30,000 visitors a year.
Jesus.
Yeah. Most of
a lot
which...
of visitors.
It's a lot of visitors, and most of which were European and American. So, big influx of Western visitors.
Man, that's just like, I don't know, I'm shocked, but I guess not shocked, because it's the 80s. That's like, you know, peace, love, rock and roll, man.
Yeah, we've just come out of the free love movement of the 70s. This is like, and now we're getting into like satanic panic territory where religion's really clamping down on that. Where they're just like, you need to be a good Christian, you need to do this, nuclear marriage, you know, only a man and a woman can love each other. Like, everyone stay put, everyone be good, everyone worship God. And it's a lot of people coming out of that free love movement being like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, 100%. That's why I can imagine it, but I'm just so shocked that it just has such a huge following.
Yeah,
wow,
it's massive. It was also noted around this time that Rajneesh's lecture style also changed, switching from a more intellectual speaking type based around philosophy to becoming a bit more jokey and basically turning his lectures into a stand-up comedy act.
Okay.
So
can we find his stand-up comedy now?
I didn't find it, but I'm sure that we probably could because there's so much footage. And if you hear him talk, he's very personable. He's very charismatic. He's like the way he talks. He's like, I'm just like one of you guys. Like we're like, wasn't that crazy? Like what they did over. It's very like trying to connect one-on-one. So I can kind of understand. And of course, if people feel like they're connecting and like personally with their leader, it's going to create a more loyal following.
100%. I mean,
I guess the shift.
Yeah, it's just shocking. That's not. Do many cult leaders steer into comedy?
I don't know of many that I personally know of, but I'm not saying that it's not a thing. But
it's clearly, yeah. But did he invent that? I don't know.
Yeah, but I think it's normally what we see in cults is that it's like, now I am God. It is more of like fear and dominance. But this one was more like, hey, I'm just like you guys.
Yeah.
We're being bullied. It's us versus them, guys. It was very like personal. And it's like, I almost feel like it worked better.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, it's such a unique technique to go about it. I've never seen another cult leader adopt that. And that's just like, I'm like, was this the first time like in history that like someone really, a cult leader took that kind of persona on of like you said, like, I'm just like you. Like, I'm not like Jesus where he's judging you. Like,
yeah, it's like, there's no judgment here. We all make mistakes. Like, how's the family? How's everything go? And as we'll find out later, like the cult is still alive. So,
all right.
So, did it work better? I guess that's a question for the end of part 2.
I guess it is.
So, also around this time, it was reported that Lakshmi, his personal secretary, failed to find further property for the new commune.
Oh.
So, yeah, they were like, sorry, Lakshmi. Like, she was like, I can't find a single piece of property in India. Nobody wants to take us. We're being turned away. They don't want the land use to become a spiritual commune. Not gonna fly. So Rajneesh is also still battling with all of his medical issues. His diabetes is still going. Stress of all this government is coming to me. He's still a frail, older gentleman. He's got terrible allergies going on. So with all of that in mind, Lakshmi was removed as his personal secretary.
Aww.
Instead, she was replaced by Ma Anand Sheila.
I knew it.
Oh yeah, we wouldn't be talking about her if she wasn't an important woman. Yeah, so Ma Anand Sheila and her husband John Shelfer, aka Pram Jayananda, are now the 3 most powerful people inside the commune.
Jeez, okay.
So, on April 10th, 1981, after 15 years of public speaking, Rajneesh decided to take a vow of public silence.
That's out of left field too.
Yeah, it's very strange, isn't it? 15 years of every day for 15 years, talking for 60 to 90 minutes about everything, being personable, connecting with his following, and suddenly he is not speaking in public at all.
Yeah.
That's...
How does he even manage to do that?
So hour-long lectures were replaced with silent sitting and music, as well as reading spiritual texts. So it kind of became like a quiet book club. It almost like became like a library in a weird way. And at this point, we had a lot of administrators. So we have the personal secretary, but she had her lieutenants as well. So they were kind of mandating these group sessions. All of the sessions were still happening, but they were being led by therapists. They were being led by disciples. So the only thing that he was really participating in actively were these lectures at the beginning. And now they're just silent reading time. Reading time with Rajneesh.
Reading time with Rajneesh. Well, as a fan of reading, that doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah. But of course, he can't speak now to his following. But not to worry, he has a personal secretary. So, Ma Anand Sheila became Rajneesh's voice and his spokesperson.
That's a big promotion. Wow.
It's a massive promotion. All right, so Sheila's secretary. She's in charge. She's Rajneesh's voice. And with all the pressure coming from both the media and politicians, it became more and more apparent that the Pune ashram was no longer welcome and the commune needed to move. And it was around here that Sheila allegedly posed the idea that they could establish a brand new commune in the US. So Rajneesh was allegedly resistant to the idea at first, but changed his mind in May 1981. So, June 1st, 1981. It's coming out of baby. Rajneesh made his very first trip to the United States, and it was the first time in 4 years that he ever left the ashram.
Wow, okay.
He did not tell his followers that he was leaving. He simply disappeared one day.
That's fun. He's just like, I'm just going to take a little trip, little sneaky trip.
I think he left late at night. So the few followers that were awake and walking around, they saw him get in the car and they were like, oh, goodbye, see you later. And it was a very he just drove out and then never came back.
Jeez.
And it was just, yeah. So Sheila later said that secrecy was needed or their plans for relocation to the US would not succeed, which tells me that this is a very shifty business that they were about to commit.
Yeah.
So Rajneesh traveled to the US on a tourist visa for medical purposes and spent several months at the International Rajneeshi Retreat Center in Montclair, New Jersey, where Sheila had gone.
Uh-huh.
Yes, so she's like, hey, I know this place in New Jersey. It's pretty cool. You can stay there until we find a place to settle down. And he's like, sure, it's cool. See you there. It was actually at this retreat center that he was diagnosed with a prolapsed disc in his back, and he received extensive medical treatment at St. Thomas Hospital. So that on top of all of his other things.
Yeah.
His medical issues are stacking up.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
But now, at least, Rajneesh was in the States, and he was not in a hurry to leave. And of course, Sheila had a mission. So, 13th of June, 1981, Sheila's husband, Prem Jayananda, or John Shelfer, along with a few other wealthy followers, purchased a property in Oregon for $5.75 million.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
Chump change for them, right?
Oh, yeah, they were just like, psh, psh, easy.
Yeah, I'm just thinking how much that money is. It's back then, too, so it's like, wow.
It's money we can't even fathom. I should have looked up what this was. This is 80s money, $5.75 million. I'm sure that's $17 million for us.
It's got it. Like you said, the inflation's crazy on that.
Yeah, it's money that you and I can't even comprehend.
No.
It's so much money.
So
I would
many
never see
zeros.
this much money in my lifetime.
No. Oh.
So, the property was a 64,229 acre ranch named Big Muddy Ranch. The ranch was promptly renamed Rancho Rajneesh.
Love it. Very Western.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I like they're getting into their Western environment. The ranch was mostly slopes and rugged, rocky terrain. It was considered inhospitable land.
Okay.
It was located in both Wasco and Jefferson counties, and it was 19 miles outside of Antelope, Oregon. So, Antelope, Oregon consisted of a post office, a general store, a schoolhouse, and a church, and a couple of houses.
Oh, wow.
There were 75 people living there.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Majority were working class and of retirement age. So, tiny, tiny speck.
Yeah.
And then suddenly this massive ranch right next to this tiny, tiny, tiny town is bought up for $5.75 billion. And these poor locals are just like, what's happening over there?
Wow. Cult's just taking up residence.
You know? They did. I'm sure when they heard that it was being bought, they were like, I don't know what's going on over there. Maybe it's just some wealthy billionaire.
Yeah.
So, once the property was bought, the commune moved in. And the commune, I'll speak about this. These were top-notch commune members. These were very loyal, hardworking followers. These were people who had graduated the sessions and had proven that they were hard workers. These were not the casual Western people coming here for to do crafts. These were people who were proven disciples within the commune.
Yeah.
So, soon as they moved in, they introduced themselves to their brand new neighbors. And they're all wearing those red robes.
I can only imagine how literally jarring that would be. To just you're you said this little town that doesn't get too many visitors, and then all of a sudden, like, this stampede of brightly colored people just comes walking in, and they're just like, hi.
Yeah, and this is like, it's a couple hundred people, I think. Somewhere near 500 people were the first initial wave. So it's 75 people living in this town, and 500 people all wearing the same color come in and go, hey, we just bought the ranch. Like, we're going to be your neighbors. Like, we're gonna hang out. So, like, good to meet you. And the way to get to the ranch, you had to go through Antelope. Like, it was like the thoroughway. Like, that was where the main road connected. So it was just this poor town, like, just getting these waves of these red-robed people coming in.
Jeez.
So the Red Robe followers said that all they wanted to do was farm their land, worship in peace, and be good neighbors. And that they immediately closed up all the nearby roadways to prevent people from coming into the ranch. Good neighbors.
Yeah, that's what friendly neighbors do.
And the community, this commune, they got to work. So within the span of months, they had built infrastructure, roads, buildings, power lines, and sewer systems.
Jesus.
So the commune actually called this labor their worship. So their form of worship to Rajneesh was to build these things for him from scratch by hand. They didn't get contractors and they built it all themselves.
That's insane. That's also unfathomable. That's just like, what?
It is mind-blowing what they accomplished.
How do you even have the skills? Like, how do you know how, like, I would not even know where to start. Like, this is before YouTube.
Yeah.
What are they, like, you know what I mean? Like, how do they just, like, know how to just build sewer systems and stuff? Were they good sewer systems?
I think so. I think they were functioning. And I think that these people were actually handpicked. These were people who probably came from these backgrounds. They were contractors. They were city planners. They were people who had knowledge in these fields. And then the rest of them were people who were willing to work. So they just had laborers. But it was also, this was gender equal laborers. So women were building. They were operating machinery. This was not just a bunch of men in red robes showing up and building things. This was just, they would look like families, like just regular young couples would come in. They're like, hi, we're going to do things. And then they would just both get into like different cranes and just start building.
Okay, sure. Yeah,
equal opportunity.
Great.
So within, as part of this worship, they even had their own shopping center to buy their lovely color coordinated attire.
That's amazing.
They built a worship hall. They built functioning farms and their own airport.
That's mind-boggling. What?
Yeah.
An airport?
An airport.
So now he can just come and go from wherever he wants.
With his private jets, Alana. This is a cult.
Cool. I like that.
So, Rancho Rajneesh was then promptly renamed Rajneeshpuram. It could house up to 10,000 people. It was self-sufficient. And shortly after, Rajneesh himself moved in on the 29th of August.
That is unfucking believable. He literally...
That turnaround. They bought the place in June, and he moved in August. Like...
To build all of that in that time is just like, what?
Yeah. These people were motivated.
Dude, that's like just ants build like an ant hill. It's just like, I just don't even...
Oh, yeah.
My mind cannot comprehend.
I know. Just hold on, because it's going to get a lot weirder real quick.
Oh, okay. All right.
Stay with me, man.
I'm holding on to my butt. I don't know if I can handle it.
We're just getting started. So then, the ranch was then voted in as a newly established city within Oregon. So not only was it just a ranch, it was voted in by 154 American citizens unanimously to be established as a brand new city within Oregon.
That's all it takes?
So Rajneeshpuram was a recognized city in Oregon.
That's all it takes was 150 people?
Because it was they only had 154 Americans.
I guess that's
and there
fair.
Was nobody opposing.
Yeah, all right.
Their neighbors are a town of 75.
Yeah,
and they're sufficient. So I think
like
as long as it's
the criteria is so low to just make a new city.
I think this is also the 80s.
Yeah,
I think it's fair. A bit different now.
It's probably a lot different now. Yeah, you're right.
And I think it's a lot different now because of this. I think a lot of legislature was put in place after this to stop this from happening. But it really was that easy. 154 people voted to make this a city, and the Oregon government was like, yeah, okay, I guess it's a city now. We've got a city called Rajneeshpuram.
All right.
So, being its own city meant it could make its own laws. It also meant that it could have its own law enforcement, and it could be completely self-governed.
That is so scary and terrifying, and I hate it, and I don't like it.
The level of power that was acquired so quickly because Rajneeshpuram was like, 154 were like, we want it to be a city, we want our own law enforcement, we want our own government, we want to make our own rules. And they were like, yeah, I guess they hit the criteria.
Jesus, that is just absolutely, like you said, just terrifying. Mm-hmm. And it happened so fast.
It happened so fast. Now, the local community of Antelope, 19 miles away, had reactions ranging from hostility to tolerance depending on the distance to the ranch.
Okay.
So, Rajneeshpuram...
I can understand the hostility.
Yeah. They were like, what do you mean they have their own law enforcement? So, Rajneeshpuram was very isolationist, naturally, and it was very closed off from its neighbors. But the followings and the constant pouring in of new followers had to go through Antelope to get to Rajneeshpuram. And they came in the hundreds. They would come in waves and waves and waves.
And I'm sure it wasn't like, they're not built for that. Like,
no. It completely changed the activity within the city. And actually, while they were walking through, they would actually put up posters and feature religious teachings of Rajneesh through Antelope.
Oh, no.
So this small retirement town who were like this sleepy town. Suddenly posters are going up of this random guy. And they're just like, yeah, like, isn't he so cool? We're going to go see him. And there are people coming in waves in orange, red, purple robes, just coming in. And it's a retirement town. These people are just like, I just want to be here in peace.
I would shut down my roads. You can't get there anymore. Make your own roads.
Yeah, it basically was like Woodstock had moved in next door, was what it was.
I would be so upset, genuinely.
Yeah. So the other thing to really keep in mind here is that this was right after Jonestown.
Oh, okay.
Jonestown had happened a little bit before, and I'm going to give you guys some context for that. So Jonestown is kind of like the pillar of unchecked religious movements and the disasters that can follow. For context, Jonestown was a religious commune in Guyana led by cult leader Jim Jones. Over 900 people died during Jonestown.
Yeah.
In one day. So this also included U.S. Congressman Leo Ryan. Now here's a weird twist of fate. Leo Ryan's eldest daughter, Shannon Jo Ryan, joined Rajneeshpuram as a follower.
That is very strange.
She changed her name to Ma Amrita Pritam and married another commune member.
Okay.
She was in it BB.
Wow, taken after her dad.
Her dad wasn't in Jonestown. He went there to stop it.
Oh,
and he died as a result.
Well, then never mind. Cut that out.
Yeah, Leo Ryan. Leo Ryan. He came to Guyana and he was like, "This is really fucking weird. You guys are insane. Like, you cannot be doing this." And as he was leaving to go report his findings back to U.S. Congress, he was shot.
Wow.
And then to basically stop themselves from being persecuted for killing a congressman, the entire commune of Jonestown poisoned themselves.
Wow. Okay.
And 900 people died.
Wow.
So, in the wake of that, his daughter joining Rajneeshpuram and changing her name and marrying into the community, it's very ironic, I guess.
Yeah. I was like, I don't even know the word, but ironic is the best probably word for it.
Yeah. Conversely, though, her sister, Patricia Ryan, became a member and was later president of the board of the National Cult Awareness Network.
Wow, they took two completely different paths.
Yeah, their other sister, the third sister, did work as an analyst for the CIA.
Okay.
And then later worked as a pastry chef. So, like, very different road paths.
Wow.
So, there you go. So there's the connection to Jonestown. But, of course, Antelope is very aware of Jonestown. The U.S. is very aware of Jonestown. It was a catastrophe. Mm-hmm. And now there's suddenly another little commune. Everyone's dressing the same. Everyone's worshiping this guy. I'm sure the parallels were not wasted on anybody. So Rajneeshpuram was very quick to dismiss any correlation with Jonestown, calling themselves life affirmative, while Jonestown was life negative. So, yeah. At any rate, Rajneeshpuram and Antelope was a collision of two very different ideologies. So there was one that preached free love, open sexuality, active community, hard work, farming. It was a youth movement as well. Yeah. And the other was very nuclear families, Christian loving, and it was a community of retirees. It was people who had lived their lives, they had done their due diligence. Yeah. And it's a very, very weird thing to slam. They're two very different ideologies just slamming into each other.
Man, I can only imagine the clash.
Oh yeah. So, naturally, locals of Antelope, including a man named Bill Bowerman, who was also known as the founder of Nike, got involved with a group called 1,000 Friends of Oregon that actively petitioned for the removal of any buildings on the property, as well as the sewer system.
Okay.
Their argument was that Big Muddy Ranch, as it was previously known, was agricultural land. But now the owners of Rajneeshpuram had converted it into a commercial city. So yes, they did farm work, but they had broken local ordinances by not using the land for its intended purposes. They were not following land use.
Gotcha, okay.
So another group called Citizens for Constitutional Cities was formed to hinder ranch development. They even filed a petition that would order the Oregon governor to contain and control and remove the threat of invasion by an alien cult.
Okay.
Lawsuits were even filed to void the city altogether, but it was found that the city was owned legitimately and run by the Rajneesh Foundation, so it could not be voided. Everything was above bar. It was all above the board.
Sure.
The owning was.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the land use. That's the only thing that can get them on right now.
Okay.
So, while all this is going on, Rajneesh himself, Bhagwan Rajneesh, is still in his period of silence. So he's not talking.
All right.
To anybody. Still. He only spoke to Sheila and a woman named Ma Yoga Vivek, who was also known as Christine Wolfe. His only interactions with his follower was his daily Rolls-Royce drive-by. So he would get in a Rolls-Royce, all his followers would get up in a line all along the side of the road, and he would just drive by and wave at them all.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's said that he really, really did love Rolls-Royce. He loved that kind of luxury, and he eventually owned 93 in his lifetime.
That is so many. That one of those cars is insanely expensive. The fact 93 is just...
That is like... That is why buying this ranch was chump change to him.
Yeah.
It is... But, like, it's cult, right? It's like, I want to be tax exempt so I can keep all the money. I don't want to pay taxes. I don't want to pay for the betterment of the community. I want to use that money to buy myself 93 Rolls Royces and Rolexes and everything.
No wonder he wanted a vow of silence. He just wanted to get he's like, I made it. I got all the money. I'm going to go just live in my life of luxury now, you know? Like, it's just...
Yeah. That's it. So, now... This small town of Oregon, Little Antelope, Oregon, is making a huge fuss about this very strange thing that's moved in next to them and has now established itself as a city, ? And now people are looking at Rajneeshpuram, and it's in the hot seat.
Yeah.
So they're like, what's happening? What is this? Is this a cult? What are they doing? Like, we're just worshipping this guy who drives Rolls Royces down, and like every day they have to greet him, and everyone's wearing a picture of him around their necks. Like,
yeah.
What is this? Is this another Jonestown? So, the government begins hindering Rajneeshpuram's growth and development, mostly to the credit of 1,000 Friends of Oregon.
Okay.
So Sheila, lovely Sheila, comes up with a plan. If I can't build and develop my city because of land use, why not just buy a pre-made city and, like, convert one that already exists?
Oh, no, I see where that's going.
Whoa, look at that. There's one 19 miles away called Antelope, and it's got a lot of property for sale.
I feel like Antelope's gonna hate this.
So Rajneeshpuram begins buying out all the properties in Antelope. The population was 40 to 75 people at the time, and most of the property in Antelope was for sale at an incredibly cheap rate because it's a small, sleepy retirement town.
Jeez.
So they began buying up all the land, and they took over several businesses and essentially started holding this town hostage.
That's awful.
So the idea was that they were going to hold Antelope in this state. They were just going to hold on to this property until the state consented to officially declaring that Rajneeshpuram was a real city. Mm-hmm. It could do what it wanted. It just wanted the recognition. And as soon as the Oregon government acknowledged that it was a fair and legit city, and they would get out of their business, they were going to hold Antelope hostage.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea.
You know, at the time, I'm sure it seemed like a great idea. They were like, we're just going to have this city until you give us our own, and then we'll leave.
It's like a terrorist act.
And locals were moving in, right? So, the followers, the cult followers, they were moving into Antelope. They were living in these houses alongside these retirees, and they were still following the sex guru's acts. So they were, sunbathing in the park naked, and they were, they took over the local cafe, they took over the schoolhouse, they took over everything.
Wow.
And these 75 citizens are just like, what the fuck is going on?
Get out of our town. And they're like, no, we live here.
So the locals of Antelope retaliated.
How so?
They began defacing Rajneesh property.
Oh no, that's not gonna be good.
They began spray painting graffiti on Rajneesh property. They also handed out anti-Bhagwan paraphernalia, including posters, t-shirts, and little signs. They would also walk around with guns and randomly shoot rounds into the air as a form of intimidation.
Is that allowed?
This is America, baby.
It's a gray area.
This is the 80s, America in the 80s. I think a lot of things were allowed that shouldn't be allowed, but they would do that. The atmosphere was described as hateful and toxic.
Yeah,
I can't imagine why.
That sounds awful. Oh my god.
So these Rajneeshs who had volunteered to move into Antelope while they were holding the town hostage were now being intimidated and terrified. So they retaliated. This
is just a fire war, dude. It's like a flame war. It's literally just, we'll fight fire with fire. You got fire? Well, we have more fire.
Pretty much. It's like they started doing this, so we started doing this. And like, well, they were doing this, so we're going to do this now. And it's like, guys, everyone just calm the fuck down.
This will never end this way.
Yeah. So Rajneeshs are retaliating now. So they would begin shining spotlights into residents' homes of an evening while they were sleeping. And they also set up cameras on the street and paparazzi photo shoot people mowing their lawns, sitting on their porch, and harassing them through photo shoots.
That's such a 21st century thing to do. That's crazy, actually.
It's like they weren't using guns. They were like, we're just gonna get in your business and catalog what you're doing and make you feel like you're not safe. It's
psychological warfare.
It's a Cold War, and it was fought with money, fear, and anger. Nobody went to strike a blow, but it is a very, very, very tense environment.
Jesus.
So Antelope realizes that they are vastly outnumbered. There are 75, and there are close to, I think at this point, 1,500 followers in Rajneeshpuram, and they're moving into Antelope.
Oh my god, I hate that.
So Antelope is like, guys, I got it. Let's disincorporate. Let's destroy our city.
That'll teach them.
So they tried to disincorporate, which basically means they attempted to dissolve Antelope as a city. So it was basically just going to be free land at this point, and the city of Antelope would no longer be recognized as a city in Oregon.
How does that accomplish anything, though? What is that?
Well, it means that they can't hold, or they lose their poker chip. The Rajneeshs do. They're not going to have this city that they're holding hostage. They're not going to be able to take over the city.
Yeah,
they're not going to get their demands met.
That's fair.
So yeah, the Antelopians, I'm going to call them, they claimed that it would be better to be dead than red.
Wow. Oh my god, these 75 people are just no, we will die.
Yeah, we will die before we wear those red robes, goddammit.
This really was a war, oh my god.
So, 1982, Antelope had its vote whether or not to disincorporate. There were only 100 registered voters.
Of course.
There were only 100 registered voters in the entire city of Antelope, including Rajneeshs.
Oh my gosh.
The final tally of this vote was yes 42, no 55. Antelope was here to stay.
Wow.
Yeah. But just because the Rajneeshs won the battle didn't mean things were getting any easier. On July 29th, 1983, a hotel owned by Rajneesh called the Hotel Rajneesh in Portland, Oregon, was bombed.
What?
A hotel owned by Rajneesh was bombed.
Okay, that's getting big.
Yeah. So the bombing was actually done by an extremist named Stephen Paul Pastor, and he planted and exploded 3 pipe bombs inside the hotel, which only injured Pastor. Nobody died. He only accomplished in hurting himself.
I mean, good. We don't need that kind of stuff here.
Yeah. The attack caused $180,000 in damages.
Okay.
Pastor was arrested, but released on bail, and fled Oregon.
All right.
Disappeared.
He just caused a lot of damage, hurt himself, and was like, peace.
Yeah, he's like, so yeah. He was later found in Colorado and returned to Oregon to face trial for arson. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison, but only served 4 years.
Seems fair.
Makes sense to me. Pastor was also the lead suspect in 2 other bombings in 1984, one of a Hindu and one of a Vedanta religious site in Seattle. He was not affiliated with Antelope. Okay. He was part of another religious extremist organization. I can't remember which one off the top of my head. But this had nothing to do with Antelope and, Rajneeshpuram. This was just because he hated Eastern meditation practices, and he was like, I'm gonna blow their stuff up. Okay. But of course, all of this didn't come to light at the time. This was just our hotel got bombed, and the city of Antelope was real pissed off at us. Yeah. So the cult took it personally. In retaliation to the bombing, Rajneeshpuram began bringing in weaponry to the commune. Oh no. Yeah. Shooting exercises began to mingle with meditation. Oh my god. It was also at this time more and more Rajneeshs registered to vote, and they actually managed to take control of the Antelope City Council. That's crazy. So now the Rajneeshs they control Rajneeshpuram, the ranch, and they now control Antelope at a government level. That's just awful. Okay. Well, it's the scale of this. The scale of this all. They just weren't going to stop. They set their sights on something and they're like, nope, we're not going to lose this. Yeah, stubbornness. It's pure stubbornness. Like, they wanted something, and Rajneesh wanted something, and he's not used to being told no, he cannot. Yeah. And he took that personally. Yeah, literally. Yeah. So, September 18th, 1984, a vote was held in what was left of Antelope, and the city's name officially changed to Rajneesh. So now they have 2 cities. One pseudo-city that hasn't been confirmed by the Oregon government, and one pre-existing city that has had its name changed. With this vote, they also changed street names, store names, and they set up a peace force to maintain their way of life. A peace force? Yeah. It was an armed militia. Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, that doesn't sound... Yeah. With this peace force, they began bringing their weapons into town and started intimidating Antelope locals. Fun. Okay. Any protesters against this peace force and Rajneesh and any of this voting that was going on, they were arrested for menacing. So anyone who said anything bad about what was going on was put in prison. That is, actually terrifying that he just had the power to do that, because I'm sure that was defined very loosely. Yeah, it is terrifying, the amount of power they so quickly acquired. Yeah. And it was because they decided to take over an empty ranch and a small town. Nobody had anything, they had no power. It was 75 people against 1,500. Yeah. It was a hostile takeover. That's insane. As a result, gun sales in nearby towns skyrocketed because they were afraid that what was happening to Antelope was going to happen to them. Yeah. So now Sheila begins appearing on national television, and that brings a whole new spotlight to what's going on. Mm-hmm. So she began talking to various news outlets and daytime show hosts, basically being like, hey guys, we're Rajneeshpuram, we're a commune set up in Oregon. Like, these are our goals, these are our demands, and we deserve to be heard.
These are our goals, these are our demands.
Yeah. So she had, allegedly, according to her, she had explicit instructions to be provocative and to share the Rajneeshi way of life.
Okay.
As well as to draw attention to the cult's demands and the fact that they were being ignored by the Oregon government.
Wow.
All of this, she said, were direct orders from the Bhagwan.
Wow. You know, use the sex we preach that sells. Be provocative, and then just preach our cause.
But also, like, it's one of those, again, where it's like any press is good press. Like, if Spotlight, they'll either find sympathizers or they'll make it a lot worse for themselves. And it was a little bit of both.
Yeah, Jesus.
On top of all of this press and intimidation and a hostile takeover of a town, there were also issues with bringing in international followers into Oregon.
Okay.
Kind of similar to early issues that they had with visas being granted to see Rajneesh in India. It was like, if someone declared that was the purpose of their visit, they would get turned away.
All right.
Well, the commune retaliated to this and said, you cannot deny someone entry into somewhere when they simply wish to pay respects to the head of their religion. Which meant that Rajneesh's teachings were now officially considered a religion.
Ew.
We're in cult territory.
Yeah. Oh my god. We got a city, we got a religion, we got just too much going on for my liking.
Yes. They called it Rajneeshism. Rajneeshism.
I like it.
It's very hard to say. Rajneeshism. It was now an established religion. And Sheila said as much on national television, that it was no longer a philosophy, but a full-blown religion and a way of life.
Man, okay. All right.
But suddenly, there's a lot more attention and interest in Rajneeshism and Rajneeshpuram. So communes actually started popping up all over the world. So they had some in Australia, they had some in Europe, they had some in South America, they had other places, all like Canada. They had these little tiny communes that were popping up all over the world, and they would create like these distribution centers essentially for these teachings.
All right.
Book sales for all of Rajneesh's books went through the roof, either from interest or just simple curiosity.
Wow. Okay.
There were also reports now that the cult activity was getting a bit questionable.
Yeah.
More so, even more so, I guess I should say. So there were reports within the commune around this time that they actually had started censoring mail. So any mail that came into Rajneeshpuram, they would actually sift through and sort, and they would keep their followers in the dark in that regard. They also, apparently, there were reports of arranged marriages.
Wow. Again, the thing we were trying to get away from.
Yeah. Put that in your hat again. Hold on to that one. That's another little piece of the puzzle that's worth holding on to for later. So, the Oregon Attorney General became aware that things were going down over in Rajneeshpuram. And based on some of the reports that he was receiving, began pursuing them on the basis of separation of church and state. We're like, if you want to be a city, you can't be a religion.
You gotta pick one.
And if you want to be a religion, you can't be a city.
Yeah.
There was also arguments about the newfound police force carrying military-grade weaponry. And there were also investigations into the Rajneesh public school that they had set up in the old school building.
Yeah.
Debates about what the curriculum was being taught.
Yeah.
Or if teachers were allowed to mingle personal beliefs into their lessons and wardrobe while they were teaching. So, not so different from today.
Jesus. I just, yeah. All right. Well, good thing someone's stepping in at this point.
Yeah. So, on top of all of this as well, they also started looking into who had the power to appoint these positions. So, who had authority to dictate over government positions? Who had authority to assign police forces? Who had authority to assign school curriculums, teachers, congressmen? The Attorney General Office decided to pursue the case on the grounds that the cities of Rajneesh and Rajneeshpuram were unconstitutional.
Wow. So this really, kind of set a course for, a lot of legislation that I'm sure we, see today as far as when you want to make a change. Like you said, if you want a change to your curriculum in school,
I really think that this thing that happened in Oregon set the precedence for so much. and we'll kind of talk a little about it a little bit in part 2, but it's like these were really easy things to do because nobody ever once thought that it would be this easy to accomplish this.
Yeah, no one saw these things and thought, I'm going to exploit this to the fullest extent to the way that this guy did.
Yeah, like everyone's like, oh yeah, nobody's going to vote in 154 people aren't going to vote in a city because 154 people can't afford this amount of land.
Not just that, but like people aren't that crazy. No one would do that. They're good American Christian citizens, as most people thought, But then like this cult comes in and
and they're just like, we want to do this, and they were like, wait, hang on a second. And I wonder, like, if they had been a Christian cult, if they had been more compatible with their neighbors, for lack of a better word,
exactly,
how far would it have gone then? Would it have been another Jonestown, where everything was fine and everyone was complying? It was like, well, at least they're Christians. At least they're a good old Christian value kind of place. And then things had spiraled. But I think because this was such a difference in ideology, the red flags were noticed much sooner. Like, not to play on the color red, but the red flags quite literally were seen coming. So I wonder if that prevented a lot of bad, like, from it getting worse.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it did.
If this had been a Christian organization, a Christian cult, would it have gotten much worse without people interfering? Because they're like, well, at least they're at least good Christian citizens.
Yeah.
I don't know. Something to think about.
It is something to think about.
So, the Oregon government passed several bills that were intended to stop or slow the development of Rajneeshpuram. One such law was HB 3080, which stopped the distribution of revenue for any city whose legal status had been challenged, such as use of land. And because Rajneesh was currently being pursued for not using land use to its intended purpose, Rajneeshpuram was the only city this law ever impacted.
Wow.
The government of Oregon at the time, Vic Atiyeh, I think is how you say it, stated that since their neighbors didn't like him, they should just leave Oregon.
All right.
I mean, all right.
That's a solution.
U.S. Senator Mark Hatfield was very, quote-unquote, very concerned about how this religious cult is endangering the way of life for a small agricultural town and is a threat to public safety.
Good. Okay. At least he acknowledges it.
It's got eyes on it.
Yeah.
So, amidst all this, a noticeable shift was occurring within Rajneeshpuram. Bhagwan Rajneesh took a full step out of the spotlight, so really the only time people ever saw him was his Rolls-Royce drive-by. But even then, he didn't do his sitting and reading with the public.
Yeah.
Like, he really stayed in his room, except when he went out in his Rolls-Royce. Conversely, Sheila took a huge step forward, shaping herself into a noticeable leader. So she began doing solo talks, where she would say, Bhagwan told me this, Bhagwan told me this. This is what we have decided upon as a joint leadership. We're going to be doing this. We're going to be doing this.
Wow.
So many followers came to revere Sheila nearly the same way that they revered Rajneesh. So now we have 2 cult leaders. This is unheard of.
Yeah.
This is the only cult that I know that has such a clear dual cult leader status.
Yeah, like where she was just so able to step in and be like, I am an extension of him, and people were just like, okay, yep, we accept you fully.
And he didn't do anything to like say, no, you're overstepping your bounds. He was like, yeah, go.
Yeah.
Like, be the one in the spotlight. I'll be over here in my Rolls Royce enjoying my, my caviar and my bagels. Mm-hmm. You go into the public, you be the public figure.
Yeah.
And you tell my teachings the way I want you to. And she would.
I mean, it's a good system for him, but like I said, to just sit back and do nothing. Like, I'm sure he did want to kind of, like, he was sick, he wanted to just sit back and relax.
Yeah, and he is older than her. I think he's 10 years older than her.
Yeah.
So because of the way that the power kind of shifted, her personal home on the commune grew in size, and it really became her hot seat of power. Wow. So people would come to, like, kind of revere her home as much as they did with the Rajneesh.
Wow.
So inside her home, she would command a small group of lieutenants who would be at her beck and call at any time of the day and night. Every night she would meet with Rajneesh, and then simply return and simply convey what was said during the meeting. She was like, he told me this, so this is what we're going to do.
Wow.
Nobody else was allowed to join in on these nightly meetings, though. And everyone had to take Sheila at her word.
Yeah, okay. I guess, I mean...
They did.
Like, he would have said something, though, had she been wrong, right? Like, you think. Like, he's probably, like, watching the news and, like, watching the rest of everything, so if she misconstrued...
Yeah, and this is a debate that comes up later, is how much was he aware?
Yeah.
And I don't think it, like, we'll probably never know, but I have a thought.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, but because Sheila had been at his side for so long, she had been an established lieutenant, she is the one that kind of pioneered Rajneeshpuram. People respected her. They were like, yeah, like, if Sheila says it, it must be true.
Yeah, I mean, fair.
And so, yeah, and now that she was the full-blown voice of Bhagwan Rajneesh, she was now tasked with ensuring that the cult's demands were met.
That's a big hat to hold.
And she had plans. And that is where we're going to end part 1.
Ooh, okay. I didn't expect the cult to change hands like that. And
it's so strange, isn't it? Like a full shift of power where the cult leaders just kind of swapped for a bit, but they're both still there. They're both present. They're both in, like, it's not like she killed him.
That's exactly
He's
it.
there.
It's not like the power shifted completely where, like, she, dethroned him. It's just like, nah, you can just, like, borrow it for a little bit because I just want to be in the background. But, like, if I ever wanted it back, I could just come in and just, like, totally take it back.
Yeah, and she was fiercely loyal to him. Like, I think she even is to this day. Like, she is very much like, whatever he said goes, and I was gonna, like, do whatever I could to make it. So it's like, she loved him. She loved his teachings. She was never trying to be against him.
Yeah.
But she had all this power suddenly, and he just was kind of like a shadow leader in a weird way.
Yeah.
And I've never seen a cult like this. It's so strange.
Yeah.
But it's so cool, and that's the entire setup, baby. We are in Oregon. We have our 2 cult leaders. We have our commune, and now it can only go one way.
Wow. All right. Well, I'm very excited for part 2, ma'am. Part 1 was the perfect setup.
So hold on to your breakfast because it's gonna get spicy.
Oh God. All right.
Well, while we promptly set up for part 2, do you want to tell them where they can find us, ma'am?
Absolutely. If you want to find us, you can, on any socials, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, at Spookery Podcast.
Sure can. You can also send us a Gmail at spookerypodcast@gmail.com. We're there. We're live. We're well. We're kicking.
Heck yeah. Just check in on your girls, ask us how we're doing.
Yeah. Right now I'm doing great, but don't eat for this next part.
Yeah. That's
next week, don't
spoiler
eat.
Alert.
Yes, I will put that out there. I'll also say at the beginning episode, just be careful when you decide to eat during next part episode. It's not a trigger warning. It's just don't. Just don't. Yeah, if you guys are enjoying it so far, think about leaving us a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate it. You can also send it to us directly if your preferred medium doesn't do those kind of reviews. We're collecting them for something special.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, until next time, ma'am.
Stay spooky.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Life is like a hurricane here in Rajneeshpuram.
That's so funny. Oh my God.